The Marlins take the series in San Francisco, their first series win in what seems like a long time, and it was delivered by the young sticks, the rotation, and the bullpen holding. Tons to get into. This is Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins, your daily Marlins pod. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up, of course, at Miami Marlins _UK. Happy Monday, guys, and welcome to September. Hope everyone had a great weekend. The Marlins certainly did in San Francisco. This is your team every day, of course. And thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. A reminder, there's also a YouTube channel, so hit subscribe over on the YouTube channel. Join me in the comments. Let me know the most impressive bomb over the weekend. It has to be Griffin Conine's, right? It has to be. We're going to talk about Griffin Conine, Stowers, Norby, everyone chipping in with bombs. But the rotation equally, the starters were delivering too, and the bullpen right now at times delivered. If you were to ask me who delivered for the bullpen, I'm not sure I could tell you. Frankly, we're at that time of the year. The rosters have expanded, and thus far, the Marlins have added the impact stick of Johnny Pareda. The question will be is, for tomorrow's game, will Johnny Pareda remain on the roster? I don't think so. I don't know so, but I don't think so. Nevertheless, there's absolutely tons to get into here, guys. This episode, though, is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel, and now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. And it was a fun weekend, guys. Fun weekend of Marlins baseball. It's probably one of the funnest weekend series there's been maybe all year. Maybe. You know, it's hard to remember a whole season's worth of play in this moment, but I think when you reflect on the stories that continue, there's a lot of fun stories going on right now. So this has definitely been fun. A lot of guys kind of stepping up and getting big knocks in big moments. No bigger than Griffin Conine's first home run for the Marlins, which was a stunner, by the way. Kyle Stowers, though, in yesterday's game with an absolutely huge knock at the time. And Kyle Stowers, after a ropey start, has absolutely got himself rolling. There's been some roster moves, too, as well. So we're going to dig into that today with Jose Devers back with the Marlins. When I saw that news, granted, it was on Saturday. I'm not going to lie, on Saturday, I consumed way too many beers, wine, limoncello, you name it. I drunk it on Saturday, and man, oh man, I remember looking at the news that Jose Devers had been recalled, and I didn't know what year it was. I didn't know where I was. I was stunned. I didn't even know Jose Devers was still with the Marlins. I thought we traded him as part of a deal for someone. Couldn't even remember. So Jose Devers is back. Vidal Brujan onto the IL. Seemingly some sort of shoulder joint issue. Doesn't sound good. Sounds like a season ender to me, in my opinion. And speaking of that as well, we haven't seen, I don't think, anything of Declan Cronin in the recent days either. And so I probably missed this on Saturday, but Declan Cronin maybe headed to the IL. I don't know. Again, if it is, and with a knee issue, probably the end of his campaign. Nevertheless, there's going to be tons of roster moves probably this week. The remaining month, there's going to be tons. But it's fun. I'm trying to gauge the pulse for Marlins fans right now. Like, how is everyone feeling? Did this re-energize you? Did this energize you, this series in particular? My sense is yes. I'm seeing quite a buzz on Twitter. I think some of the guys connected to the team in general, like I was seeing Kyle Seeloff tweeting about it. I was seeing Steven Strom tweeting about it. There's rightly so, a lot of buzz about some of these young guys, and the fact that the Marlins have made some moves. Let's kind of, break it down here. The Marlins have made some moves. They've acquired some pieces, and a few of those pieces have already made it up to the big league level. And already you're seeing them perform to a degree. It's all small sample sizes, of course. There's no pressure as well at this situation. Like for these guys, the Marlins right now, there is zero scoreboard pressure. There's zero, there's the usual pressure. These guys are trying to make it in the game, clearly. They will be feeling nervous, no doubt. But, there is no, we need to win this game, pressure. They're not in a playoff race where every game matters, every out matters, anything like that. So it's a perfect kind of learning environment just to kind of settle in, which is why, we'll get into this just after the first ad break, but this is why I think the Marlins roster moves will continue to happen, particularly the offensive guys, and some of the big league ready guys will continue to arrive in September, because it is the perfect developmental position here for the Marlins. And we don't know what 2025 is going to bring, but what we know is for 24, there's a month worth of play here that's going to be competitive. And we're already seeing it with like a Kyle Stowers who comes into the Marlins organization. He struggles immediately and then, settles in, finds his groove. Connor Norby, again, he comes straight in and starts impacting the team. So this is why there's a buzz. Two of the guys that were acquired via trade are up and are delivering. You've then got Griffin Conine that was acquired via trade many, many years ago. Many people believe that Griffin Conine was not a big leaguer, left unprotected in at least one Rule 5 draft. It may be two. I need to actually go and check that out, because this is the second podcast where I've questioned myself. Notice he has been left unprotected in Rule 5 drafts. He's been down at AAA for seemingly a lifetime. And probably many people had written off Griffin Conine, probably thinking about is he ever going to make it up? Is he ever going to make it up? Is there a big leaguer there? Griffin Conine comes up, and you listen across the Rockies series and the Giants series. Granted, particularly the Rockies series is always a great environment, but like in San Fran, it's certainly not an amazing hitter's park there at all by any stretch. And so, these are tests on the road, first couple of series, and Griffin Conine's really stepping up, and to me, looking every bit the big leaguer. Every bit the big leaguer. And we'd written him off for ages, for years. But I think that's the beautiful thing with baseball, the beautiful thing with development and everything is you just don't quite know what you're going to get until these guys arrive in the big leagues. And then, you'll see. Some people will step up to the occasion. Other guys may kind of fade. The lights may be too bright. We don't know. And that's the point, is we just don't know. And I think that's, kind of like, just thinking about who else we could see. I think that's what kind of puzzling maybe about like a Troy Johnston, who's just been hitting there for years in AAA, hasn't been given an opportunity. And at the moment, considering the age, etc., but the weird thing is you just don't know. You're left not knowing. And so, it's maybe going to be tricky, because I think there's maybe other guys the Marlins would, prioritize at that spot, first base in particular, to come and get a bit of a look here in September. So I don't know, but like Griffin Conine for me, what a story. What a story this is. And it's helping, I think. This is, I think, the thing with Griffin Conine is him being called up in a dead season and immediately producing has reconnected some of the old fans. Like the Marlins fan base, some of the guys that may be disinterested at this point, they maybe haven't watched Marlins baseball since they moved the Riders, or, it was clear that their season was over. They haven't been watching. But Griffin Conine being called up has got eyeballs back on the team. And the interesting thing is, there's probably a few people watching these games surprised at the level of talent that is here, the young talent that's here at the Marlins right now. There'll be people tuning in going, oh, I didn't realize. I haven't been paying much attention. Who's this Connor Norby dude? He looks pretty good. Kyle Stowers. Love his hair. Is it Jock Peterson? Nevertheless, he hits bombs. Love to see it. This is the thing. Conine has connected the past with the present. It's helping to get fans back involved. Really is. And so, listen, that's not by design in many ways. It's by luck more than judgment. But nevertheless, for a fun young group, it's super encouraging. And I think from a fan base perspective, in a season that has overall, it's stunk, we have to call it out. The season has been crap, really crap, because sport is about being competitive. Uncompetitive sport is a pointless watch. But we're through that phase now. We're now into the developmental phase. So we're watching guys rather than watching results, which is where we're up to with this season, which is completely fine. But the season's been crap. People tune out, but now they're back in. They're back in because Conine's in the mix, and there's a name that they remember, and they want to tune in and see what he can do. The Marlins are forever connected to that. That's why in in many people's eyes, that, maybe there is a need to reconnect the old with the present by the teal aspect that continues to crop up year on year on year. Finding a way to reconnect and reintroduce the teal into the modern day color scheme, etc. I know there's a degree of, listen, we're trying to distinguish ourselves, etc. But, I think, seeing this Conine situation play out, I can see how it's reconnecting fans. And I think the Marlins have got a tough job in that aspect. And I think everything they should do at this point should be considered of how do we re-engage the fan base, the guys that have maybe, drifted away over the past years, whatever it might be. Maybe they were brought all the way back in last year. Maybe they were. But I think a lot of them have drifted all the way back out again in 24 because it's just been a rough watch. Nevertheless, Griffin Conine, first major league home run. It was doinked off the foul pole. The ball was retrieved. They managed to get a deal done with the guy that caught the ball, and a brief exchange. I think it was a signed ball, bat, maybe both, from Griff. Similar, I think, from Jeff. So it was kind of like a Conine family extravaganza package to get the ball back. But nevertheless, Conine gets his ball. The interesting thing would have been is if it would have ended up, in the Cove, if it would have gone into the Cove, because I think the guy who's out there on the canoe, I think he'd messaged Griffin in advance of the series to let him know that, hey, FYI, I'm out there, I'm looking for the ball. You're not going to get it back, basically, if you hit it out here. I've got a strong connection with the number 56 or whatever it might be, but blah, blah, blah. There was a recent issue as well with Michael Harris where, the ball, it was his first ever Grand Slam, and McCovey, whatever his name is, I forget the guy's name, but the guy out there in the canoe, he wouldn't get it. He wouldn't do a deal with Michael Harris for the ball. He was like, it's my first Grand Slam, and I'm going to keep it. So fair play. That's his prerogative. And for Griffin Conine, luckily, probably hit the foul pole rather than exit in the ballpark, and maybe that ball would have been lost forever. And in McCovey Cove's, rack, however you want to phrase it. I don't know, but I've been super impressed with Griffin Conine. I think it's been a really impressive start. He's, Jeff Nelson kind of summarized it pretty well on the broadcast yesterday. Of he's kind of done everything and shown everything in 2 series worth of work. Obviously, the triple, the double, the home run now, outfield looking sharp. It's been a really impressive start for Griffin Conine. Let's continue the conversation. I did want to talk about the roster move specifically. I haven't seen anything post-game, pre-game around Skip Schumacher, and specifically why Johnny Pareda, for example, was added to the expanded roster. If that should be the expected situation ongoing, or actually this was just a fact that the team was already in San Fran, miles away, hours away from South Florida, and maybe more moves should be expected this week. I think they should. It's the perfect timing, but let's see. Carry on that conversation shortly. But before we do that, let's firstly let you know about our good friends over at FanDuel. We'll get the graphics pumped for FanDuel. There we go, guys. And you've heard us talk about FanDuel tons. It is America's #1 sportsbook, of course. Well, we have something a little different for you now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel anytime. You simply have to visit fanduel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, guys, welcome back to Locked On Marlins. It's Monday, the 2nd of September. We are into September. It is the final month of Marlins baseball. It will not make the postseason. No October baseball for the Marlins this year. But this group, it feels like, is playing well. They are fun. There are guys that have been acquired via trade that are already producing. Super encouraging. There are guys that have a nostalgic surname that are also producing. There are guys that are due to be back soon in Xavier Edwards, who has been producing. And there are other guys like Josh Bell, Jonah Bride, Jesus Sanchez, Nick Fortes that continue to produce. This is a fun group. Fun group right now. And I think as fans, we are all enjoying this. Let me just address one thing before we carry on here. It is September. And for those that maybe aren't on Twitter, haven't seen, I wanted to let everyone know that September will be my final month as host of this specific podcast, the Locked On Marlins podcast. It will finish my 3rd season hosting Locked On Marlins. It's been a great privilege to be on this show as part of this network. The network itself is absolutely on fire, going from strength to strength. And I'm sure it will continue to be the case moving forwards. They've got tons of exciting stuff planned. I'm sure that the Locked On Marlins podcast will continue to deliver what you need in the future. Just a different host. The question is why? Firstly, some people were kind of, joining a few dots and saying, okay, Pete's been binned. They want a US guy and they want someone a bit more media savvy and whatever. The Locked On Marlins podcast, it is built around fans' opinion. It's not a media journalistic pod. It's a fan pod. I'm a fan. You guys listening are all fans. And it's just about a fan takes on the team. So it's nothing to do with that. It's purely my own decision. And the rationale behind it is I feel like I need a break. I feel like I need a break from podcasting every day. I've been doing this nearly 3 years, specifically for this network, every day, 5 episodes a week. And I feel like it's time for a little rest. Simple as that. The thing is with Locked On, they continue through the off season. And I just haven't got 5 episodes a week in me through October, November, December, Jan, Feb, and March. Because in my opinion, this off season for the Marlins is going to be super quiet. Super quiet. They may make a splashy deal, but there's going to be no free agents. Then, whatever. It's going to be like the roster's ready to go. There's going to be a few minor moves to some relievers, but I need a rest. And so that's it. Simple as that. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still a Marlins fan, clearly. We'll be following the team, and I'm feeling energized myself about next year. This offensive group that thus far has been middle of the road, in terms of MLB stats through, since kind of July, I guess. The offense has been miles better. I've spoken about it on the show. It's been miles better. Let's see what the rotation looks like. But best case, they move no one and everyone's healthy. And all of a sudden, this team looks different. Someone put a tweet up through the weekend. It was the opening weekend, I think, first Teal game, and it had the lineup in it. It's like the March lineup from 2023. And the tweet basically said, how did this team make the postseason? And, again, you look up and down the lineup and you're like, man, it's a great question. Yes, Arias was in there. Yes, Jazz was in there. Soler was in there. Man, oh man, that offense was so poor. But that team, that 2023 team, was propelled by the starting rotation. Sandy stepped back a touch, but still pretty much went the whole season, 200 worth of innings. Luzardo career high, Braxton Garrett career high. Yuri Perez obviously emerged. Other guys chipped in. Cueto was terrible, but it was the rotation with the bullpen that propelled that. So I'm looking at this offense right now, and I'm looking at what they've been doing in the recent months. I'm looking at what else is going to come very soon. And I'm thinking, I don't think the offense is going to be a problem. I think that if the rotation is healthy, and I think the same will be true of this season, to be honest with you. I think if the rotation was healthy to start the season, this is a completely different season. Unfortunately for the Marlins, the rotation, missing Sandy already, the injuries, it was fully decimated, and they never recovered. They never, ever recovered from that situation and that start, and it just fell apart so quickly. There was definitely a few flaws involved in that roster, and I completely get why people were moved, etc. Makes total sense. So 25, I'm looking at it and thinking, if the rotation's there, this team will be in the mix because the rotation's good enough. It's good enough. The offense looks like it could be good enough. It could be middle of the road. A middle of the road for the Marlins and with a good rotation means they're right in the mix. So I'm feeling energized for 25. The roster's going to be young. It's going to be cheap. Sandy's going to be the big earner, and that's it. But it's going to be a fun group, no doubt. They need to work on the pen. They need to find some leverage guys they can trust. They got maybe one or two at the moment, but they definitely need to find a few leverage guys because they've moved so many. So there's going to be some work to do there. And there's guys that rotation-wise have emerged this campaign. When we look at this weekend's series in particular, Eddie Cabrera had an impressive start. I'm still uncertain about the future for Eddie Cabrera. I think he is one of the main question marks for this Marlins, for the front office, for the Marlins this offseason, about which direction they go. Do they persevere as a starter when you have starts like Saturday start? Absolutely. When you get the other version of Eddie Cabrera, absolutely not. Try him as a reliever. I think he could be good. It's such Jekyll and Hyde from Eddie Cabrera. It's so hard to know, isn't it? It's so hard to know. The other question is do they move him? Do they look to trade him? There's another wave of arms that are kind of coming around, but we've seen you don't just need a 1 to 5, you need a 1 to 10. And the 10th guy needs to be, someone like, I don't know, maybe the 10th guy needs to be like Ola or Beozo. I don't know, but I think if the 10th guy, for example, is like a Ryan Weathers type profile, then that's the depth you need. Unfortunately for this season, literally just the whole thing was decimated all at one time, and never recovered on that one. But Eddie Cabrera, very interesting situation. But Adam Oller, what's a start from him? I think I saw a stat that he was like the first guy to go 6 with 8 Ks for however many months for the Marlins. So what an outing from him. The final line on that, 6 innings, just 2 hits, 2 walks, 8 Ks. So no earned runs, 8 Ks in 6 innings. I think, like I said, it was one of the first times that's happened maybe since a Jesus Luzardo start. I'm kind of racking my brains what I saw on Twitter. So, these guys, they emerge. This is Bendick's ball in a nutshell, right? Where you're just scooping up guys, plugging them in, seeing what works. The roster continues to churn like crazy. You need an abacus to try and keep track of who's going where and when, how many moves have been made and what's cooking. But nevertheless, I think we're all learning as fans, it's pointless connecting with anyone with a long-term lens. But they're finding guys for roles that can, do jobs here and there. And, they won the series in San Fran, which is encouraging. I want to talk about roster moves in a little bit more detail. So before we do that, let's hit the final ads and then we'll come back to that. So stick with me because I know Johnny Pareda has been recalled for Sunday's game. But I'm just wondering if that is maybe a placeholder and there could be other guys on the way. Before we do that, it's time to let you know about our good friends over at Gametime. Yes, sir. And Gametime has a brand new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They've got tons of features in there as well. Of course, what I've already mentioned, the Gametime Picks, which makes a ton of sense. But also, I'm all for the all-in pricing. You toggle this feature on and it shows you the total upfront. No surprise fees at checkout. It's what drives me mad. There's been a lot of issues in the UK recently talking about, tickets and prices, specifically around the Oasis reunion tour for 2025. So I'm all in on the all-in pricing, no doubt. But you must turn this feature on. Toggle it on to make sure you see it. You also get seat views, and you get that panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And the game time guarantee, which will credit you 110% of the difference if you find the same seat, same row, or less. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Final segment here with me, Peter Pratt, on Monday, the 2nd of September. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen, guys. Did want to talk about the roster moves briefly. The offensive guy that was added, Johnny Pereda. Haven't seen any discussion around this, so I'm flying a touch blind. But my gut feel on this one was he was added, and the view may be that when we get back to Miami from tomorrow onwards against the Washington Nationals, that maybe a different roster move will occur. It didn't make a ton of sense for me, considering it was a roster expansion, so it wasn't like the Marlins were like truly shorthanded. It didn't really necessitate, a Lewin Diaz situation. Do you remember that, when Lewin Diaz had to drive through the night, sleep in his car just to try and get to a game, to sit on a bench? And Lewin Diaz never recovered after that for the Marlins. And so there was no real need for, let's say, Agustin Ramirez to hop on a flight. It probably wouldn't be first class. It would probably be cattle class. It would probably be uncomfortable. And to kind of, get to San Fran for a day game that you're not really required in, or it's not really necessary. The better situation for Agustin Ramirez at that point is to go and play for Jacksonville, and which he did. He caught for Jacksonville that day, a couple of walks and a hit, I think. By the way, Jacob Berry's on fire. Jacob Berry. I wrote him off. I wrote Jacob Berry off years ago. Even this year, still double down on it, triple down on it. Jacob Berry will never, ever take a professional major league at-bat. Jacob Berry may be making me eat my words. He's absolutely on fire in AAA. And he's clearly, seemingly found something this year, which is super encouraging. Jacob Berry's fell off the face of everyone's prospect list, rightly so. He's been absolutely terrible for the Marlins in their organization since he's been drafted. And he'll know it. He'll know it. He'll want to turn the corner. And he's delivered in AA. He's now up to AAA, and he's hit him well. Jacob Barrels, let's go. Let's go, Jacob Barrels. I would be stunned. I can't even imagine the tweets that are going to be coming out. I can't even imagine the receipts that exist on Twitter for when Jacob Berry makes his Marlins debut and probably hits a salami. I can't even imagine it. It will be insane. Receipts everywhere. Nevertheless, in my opinion, for the Marlins here, with Agustin Ramirez on the 40-man, I think Agustin Ramirez is going to get his chance with the Marlins from this week onwards. I talked about it on the show last week as well. If it was me, and listen, Peter Bendix has done exactly the opposite of what I would do this year, and the Marlins seem to be in a better situation. So that says a lot. There's only one Peter that knows what he's talking about, and it certainly is not Peter Pratt. Nevertheless, if it was me, I would love to see, I'd love to add another big league ready, clearly big league ready stick into the lineup now. Conine's up there, Norby's up there, Stowers is hitting. You're then going to add in Agustin Ramirez and Davison De Los Santos. Berger's still there hitting. Xavier's coming back. All of a sudden, the interest is going to be ratcheted right up. And you give these guys an opportunity to start to acclimatize to the big league pitching, big league environment, big league everything in advance of next season. It makes so much sense. And so, in my opinion, Agustin Ramirez, Davison De Los Santos, both will be up this week. No sources, no facts, pure guesswork. but that's what I would do. Guys, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen. I will be back tomorrow, hopefully talking about some significant roster moves the Marlins have made headed into the series with the Nats. And I look forward to seeing you then.